Hello, everybody. I'm still Harvey Silverman and welcoming you to another episode of Golf Business Live Tech Talks. Today, we're once again spanning the globe. We've done this once with Tag Marshals Bodo Sieber from South Africa. Today, we're spanning the globe all the way to Belfast, Northern Ireland, and introducing you to Gareth Macklin, the CEO and founder of Obbi. Gareth, welcome.
Thank you very much. Delighted to be on board and all the way from Belfast, which I think, Harvey's slightly colder at the minute than we are with our first serious frost last night. So yeah, delighted to be here.
So we are 8 hours difference. I'm 9 o'clock in the morning here in Redwood City. You are 5 in the afternoon in Belfast. Anybody who wants to see what that distance is like can go to Google Maps to figure that out. But I met Gareth at MCOR in July in Monterey, and we were sitting in the bar. Gareth was quite talkative about Obbi, quite excited to be amongst some of golf's leaders. And as we were sitting there, and I had brought my wife in July, I have a very poor ear for accents, so I understood about half of what Gareth was talking about. But my wife turned to me, who got all of it, and said, "Hey, you know what? Maybe you should have Gareth on your show." So here we are, and I find it fascinating because Gareth has compiled a company, has created a company with something that I never thought would be part of a golf operation, but obviously is. And we're talking about safety. And so Gareth, give us a little intro on how and why you created Obbi. By the way, everybody, it's OBBI. So give us a little intro on how and why you created Obbi and your background in safety.
Well, just actually, the prelude of Harvey, you talked about your wife. I think for your listeners, it's maybe important to talk about my wife at the very start. So you only understood 50%. And as you said, you're from the States. My wife is from the south of Ireland, which is only 150 miles away. But for about the first 6 months, I think she only understood about 80% of what I said. So I will try my very best to speak as slowly as possible for the audience. Yeah, so my own background is very much, I come from an operational background. Our family, we own and operate hotels, care homes for the elderly in Northern Ireland, and a small degree of construction as well. We employ approximately right about sort of 750, 800 people. So very, very much 25 years from an operational background. Very simply, about 7 or 8 years ago, with all the systems we had in place for running our own family businesses, and as I always said, you talked about safety, that's one element of what we do. It sits at a very, very high level of anybody running a hospitality, whether it be hotels, whether it be the club industry. But when you come from the care background, that is what we do day in, daily, every day, 365 days a year. So we have an awful lot of experience in that compliance, governance, safety, and operational side of things. Very simply, we try to buy a better system for our own business. We spent about 1.5 years with an open checkbook. Couldn't find globally what we were looking for. So I walked into our boardroom one day, presented an idea to our operational team. And I said, "What do you think of this?" They said, "That's quite interesting." I said, "Do you think that would work for us?" They're like, "Yeah." Well, I said, "Great, we're going to start a software firm tomorrow morning." Now, the important thing to point out is I don't come from a software background. So at that stage there, we had no clue how or what we were going to build the product. And as a wheel forward, about 2 years later, we won Irish Tech Firm of the Year. And we then won UK Tech Firm of the Year for innovation. And in the final, a major tech person was asking how we built the product. And it was very, very simple. We combined decades of operational experience, brought in some really, really clever people who were hired in tech, and put those day and daily operational challenges and just sort of figured out one after another. And as you say, we've grown now into the product that we're sitting with some of the top clubs across the UK and Ireland for the last sort of 3-4 years. And we're now in the American marketplace. We're endorsed by pretty much most of the major insurance companies and hopefully going in the right direction.
Interesting. We'll talk a little bit more about the insurance companies later, because insurance is becoming a an issue for a lot of golf course operators in this country, some of which not so much about safety issues, but about natural disasters and things like that. So Obbi is a cloud software program, correct?
100%, yep.
Okay. Give us a little rundown on its applications.
So in very simple terms, we sort of try to take the four main areas of compliance, operations, safety, and training. And if you use the acronym COST, cost, it's an easy way of remembering it. The challenge we had, and the reason why we're called Obbi, it stands for obligation. So if we start off from our foundation of our own business, whenever we were sitting down each day or each week or each month with our key members of staff, whether it be the board, whether it be department managers, whether it be even at an individual site level, we were asking the question, are we meeting all our obligations around our people, everything to do with training, onboarding, communication, certification, etc.? Are we meeting all our obligations around our property, fire, risk, accident reporting, documentation, suppliers? And are we meeting all our obligations around safety, compliance, and governance? And as I mentioned there, we had lots of systems, HR systems, training systems, risk systems, but they all sat, Harvey, in individual little silos all around the place. Mm-hmm. What we have done is we've created a digital platform that takes all of those things onto one platform that we have created and gives oversight of anything from the boardroom down to the individual staff member, greenkeeper, for example, to their specific obligations. So again, if I work for you tomorrow morning, Harvey, and I'm a greenkeeper, it will tell me, is my training up to date? Is my daily checks done? Through to a course superintendent who's got different obligations. And we do all of that in literally seconds. So everybody knows exactly what obligations they have to do and get oversight, as well as you said, digitally store and give access to anybody anywhere in the world that is appropriate in any company.
Got it. So I had sent you a link. One of NGCOA's longtime members, Allison George, had posted back in 2021 a very thorough safety compliance outline that she was using at her facility. And I know now she has more than one facility. And I looked at it and said, boy, this is really thorough and well done. But my second reaction was, this has got to be a lot of paperwork and filing and somebody making sure that everything is up to date and the new employees are being trained and understand what their obligations are and so on. It just seemed to me to be a huge administrative, not a mess, but a huge administrative task to keep track of all these things. If you had a chance to take a look at that, how would you comment about how what you're doing can make that administrative task so much simpler to manage?
Yeah. So I think the first thing in the document, and obviously having met earlier on the year, as you said, an exceptional operator like that, really, really good. So the document we looked at, if I was scoring out of 1 to 10 what we see, it's a solid 8.5. Really, really good. If I owned a golf club tomorrow morning and I didn't know any better, I would want to take that and ask for permission to replicate that in my club. The challenge I said is that's the 1 day point in time. So if you do that, for example, on the 1st of January and you put that in place, well, what then happens on the 2nd of January, the 5th of January, the 3rd of March, etc., across the other 364 days of the year, to make sure the obligation has been met every single day by every single member of the team across all of the different departments. And I think it was probably best, particularly Harvey, I spoke to a world-class operator who remained nameless, but if I mentioned, every one of your listeners would know this operator. And when I was speaking to them during the summer, they said, look, Gareth, we have got one of the best outside health and safety companies in the country. They're on every one of our sites. They're a multi-course operator, every one of our sites every 6 months. We have a full-time health and safety officer that, again, is on every one of our sites at least every single month. And our general managers have a safety committee in every single club who report on safety every single month. Mm-hmm. Why do we need all this information? As I said to that operator, a bit like the same in the process, is with all those systems in place, is in the next 5 seconds at any point in time, if somebody can be assured that they're meeting all of their obligations 100%, all their staff are trained at the level they want them trained, all the checks that they need done across the entire club, from pre-machinery checks to safety checks to Legionella checks to even down to the chefs in the kitchen check and temperature checks, and all that documentation, as you said, that paperwork is all 100% done to meet the specific club or the specific manager's obligations, then they never need us. But the challenge from the operational background is that when you take that document you've talked about, or many other documents like that, well, you rely on people to fill information in, it's the oversight, and you don't know necessarily, is it always done? And the club, as I've said, and particularly he came back and says to me, he says, Gareth, I am very assured that we have 95% of our stuff done for 95% of our people, 95% of the time. The problem is, I don't know where the 5% is missing and how do you help that? So we see this very, very, very common, that best in class clubs have loads of paperwork, but we all know the challenges that that then causes.
So this ties in, and I hope Allison gets a chance to view this when we get this published fairly soon. I had on your website, obbi.com, you now have your 24-25 club safety and compliance report. And with that, there were 3 key findings that I pulled out. One is 72% of clubs struggle to keep essential documents up to date. 70% can't easily access proof of compliance when it matters most. And 77% agree that health and safety measures will save money long term. My guess is, were those findings more along the lines of what you're finding in your part of the world? Because my feeling is I'd be surprised that those percentages aren't so much higher in our market in the US.
Yep. And again, it's a really good question. That survey has been done now 3 years in a row with the UK and European club managers. So these are general managers from all the different associations, from UK, Scotland, Irish, all different divisions. The figures year on year are pretty much round about the same. And even just slightly further, Harvey, one of the questions we ask is, are you confident that you're meeting your legal minimum requirements? And that's where that sort of, it varies year on year, but between sort of 72 to 77. Basically, 3 out of every 4 managers say that they know they're not meeting their legal minimum requirements. Further to your conversation coming to the States, we've done an awful lot of work in the last year, and I would agree that the conversation we come back further is that people are saying to us, well, actually, we feel that figure is higher. We're doing some survey results for some of the other associations at the minute, but whether it is 2 out of 4, whether it is 1 out of 4, whether it's 3 out of 4, as I always say, I come back to the basic. This is basic legal minimum standards. This is not world-class best practice. And there's definitely a challenge that we've seen in speaking to hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of managers for the years that we're doing this.
Wow, that's fascinating. Be interesting to see what that survey would find in the US. And I don't know if you have plans to launch that here somehow, somewhere, but I'd be curious to see how we stack up with what you've already seen in your part of the world. So how is Obbi set up at a golf facility? What's the process to get a golf facility up and running on Obbi?
So it's a really good question. And the thing is, what we do, Harvey, is depending on where the club is at the minute, is slightly changes that answer. So if I take extremes, if we take an organization, I was speaking to a significant multi-course operator last night. They have many clubs, without naming the number to keep it generic. They have got probably one of the best paper-based and Excel processes I've seen in many years. They've got all the checks, all the balance, all the bits and pieces. In that case, for example, we would take their current processes, and we have a team of experts that takes their exact checks, their exact training, and puts it onto our platform the way they want. The more common side of things, we have clubs who have got quite a lot of stuff, but don't have everything. So again, over the last years, we've built up templates of best practice, checks, training, risk assessment, etc. So they can have the happy blend of both. And in the rare occasion, we then have organizations go, okay, well, look, We don't have any of these processes whatsoever. We want to sort of rely on yourselves, as well as we're going to engage, the likes of Alan Aishatz and people like that who are safety experts in the club industry, or as well work with one organisation working in the minute that they're working with their insurance partners who are experts in the legislative side of things for a specific club in a specific state. So we, for example, people have asked me many times, we are not the experts in the legislative requirements for a certain state, for example. That's not what we do. But we work alongside the club and the expert to take all of that information. You talk about Alison, for example. Whether it be a club tomorrow morning that's got best in class paper-based processes, the challenge is they don't have the oversight, they don't have the assurances, and more importantly, they're not confident that people are meeting their obligations 365 days a year. So whatever the club is at the minute, we take that on our digital framework and we build the process out unique to that club or set of clubs accordingly.
You don't really, Obbi doesn't work to ensure that a facility meets all the relevant safety requirements. There's other experts that do that you work with, correct?
In many cases, as I always said, is a club that's working today is doing whatever they're doing right now today. They're meeting standards of the best practice. Some of them will have safety consultants externally. Some have got full-time safety people on their payroll. Some people are working with, again, this morning I was on with a company. They have their external insurance that sits on their safety committee every 3 months. So everybody's very different. The good thing is no matter where they're at on that journey, is that the Obbi platform can help them. So if we take a club again, as I spoke to last week, one of their big priorities is risk assessments around their greenkeeper. This is a really burning issue for them like that. And that's where they sort of want to start as a big priority. We had another club there that safety wasn't a concern for them until, unfortunately, 8 weeks ago, they had a major accident on site. They haven't had anything for 15 years. And all of a sudden, OSHA are, let's just say, having significant conversation about their process. And all of a sudden, there are accidents inside of things. So every club we spoke to, and we're speaking to hundreds of them, are in a different starting point. But the end conversation is always the same, is how can we make our clubs safer tomorrow morning, operationally more efficient, and look after all of our people along the way. And no matter where they are on that journey, we can help with the platform.
Got it. Okay. Are there, can you name maybe 3 safety issues that you see most commonly that you can help not alleviate, because that's not really what you're trying to do, but help identify and move that club to a better understanding of how to account for those issues?
Point number 1, and that's why we come back to our name. Whether you are a chief executive, a director of safety, a department head, whatever title you're put on it, the question we always say to somebody, you have an element of responsibility for your people, your processes, your property down below you. And as I always said, in the next 5 seconds, from wherever you're sitting here now, can you be assured you're meeting all those obligations? That comes back to data and information. And if you can't do that, that's the first thing we do, on a world-class level. Number 2, when you go into specific examples, we can help people with their training, we can help with their CHAS, people help with their risk, but that oversight is very, very important. The second side of things, again, you talked about Alison's document earlier on. So if we talk about documentation in totality across all clubs, this is the process that if I'm an imaginary club tomorrow morning and this is what we want to do, well, our framework allows that to be ensured that that is done the way you want to be done, whether it is you as a club manager or whether it be your head of safety or insurance company. For example, if you say, look, we want to do X check once a week in the greenkeeping department, we can do that at the touch of a button and be assured by 4 o'clock on a Friday evening that is done or not done, for example. Mm-hmm. But the final bit, again, it comes back to the conversation you said a few moments ago, is that if you have got paperwork at all in this process, checks, training, certification, action reporting, risk documentation, and usually these sit in either a big blue folder or a big red folder. That's the common color across the world. Haven't seen very many yellow ones.
Okay.
But whatever's in that folder of stuff, again, we can take that and you would never get a process tomorrow morning from paper. all the paper disappears immediately. And the speed and efficiencies, ultimately come back to three things. We save clubs time, we save money, and we mitigate risk, all by giving that oversight.
Oh, that's again, referring back to what Allison produced 3 or 4 years ago. I can see where what you've done quickly moves her and many others to a whole new level of organization, administration, and compliance, which is amazing. So I just finished. We'll publish soon a white paper about cybersecurity, which I think is a new and rapidly evolving safety issue. Have you taken that into account with what you're doing at Obbi as far as how clubs are protecting themselves from cyber attacks and how that gets administered and documented?
On the survey you mentioned earlier on, so you can get that on our website, obbi.club. Within that document, which is the 2024 Safety and Survey, we've actually worked with experts in that area. They give tips and advice on best practices for clubs. So like all these things, what we work, as I say, we are that sort of central catchment for all of that information. But if we go down to very simple specifics, if you said, for example, tomorrow morning, Harvey, again, Gareth works for you and you want to do a cyber training course for me as a member of staff, we can help assist to make sure all your appropriate people do that training course at the time that you want. If you want it done every 6 months, 12 months, 4 times a year, etc. Number two, if you're then saying, okay, look, things such as password change and code, and have you changed your password every month, 2 months, 6 months, whatever sort of thing. So again, come back to whether it be cybersecurity or whether it be club security, if there's a process you want to put in place for your checks, your balance certification, we can put those in the platform, at the touch of a button.
Excellent. And like I said, I think cybersecurity is a rapidly evolving situation. I know there's a lot of golf club operators, a lot of members who think, well, I'm too small, it can't happen to me. And unfortunately, it can, and it probably will, especially if they're not adopting safety measures and complying with what the experts are saying. This is how you protect yourself from getting hacked.
The whole evolution of technology in totality, people talk about our product, it's been very new and innovative and things like that, and people are going, oh, well, we're not sure about taking all the safety into like a digital solution. And as I always say, well, look, let's go back 10 years ago and definitely back 20 years ago to technology around things such as booking engines and booking software, or going to point of sales and things like that. That has moved so significantly. But if we then look at things, for example, AI, when I met with their director of technology this morning, they have a new piece of technology that they're working on a project at the minute. He says, ordinarily, this would take on us as best in class engineers, 2 to 3 of us, 4 weeks to do this piece of work. New piece of AI technology, which himself and one of our other engineers completed yesterday in 15 minutes. Now, the reason why I bring that back to the cybersecurity side of things is, if you then, for example, thinking you're one of those clubs that are not really on the target list, AI is overwhelmingly, in my message, unbelievably positive, and every single club should be involved in tomorrow morning. But to be aware, those slightly less scrupulous people who want to use tools now to hack and do all of those naughty and bad things, they can do it an awful lot easier as well. So you're right, clubs need to be very aware of the requirements far more now than they ever needed to do.
That's right, and thank you for being up to date and current in that realm of safety concerns. How do clubs use your software to train employees?
So again, there's a whole mixture, Harvey, as I said, some clubs, for example, want to rely on technology that's been around for years, which is online learning. So we have a full online learning platform. Some clubs, for example, are much more into the traditional side of learning, which is peer-to-peer learning and shadowing and things like that. So wherever they are in that process, again, we can accommodate all of those things. Some people, for example, want to do I call the January group training, where they bring everybody into the classroom, do a one-off, 4, 6, 8 hours in one go. So no matter where they're at, we can accommodate every one of those. But what I would say to people, the research sort of shows that, and I say this on the basis of having 700, 800 staff and doing what we've done for years and years, is those days of doing the big, long 4, 6, 8 hour courses one time a year are not as effective. We work with the universities and different side of things. So the big evolution now is sort of bite-sized learning. Is how can you do sort of snippet training, 15-minute, 20 minutes, 30-minute trainings, but much more regularly during the year. Unfortunately, I was with a club recently and they were talking about something as simple as CPR life-saving training, that they had trained all of their staff in the way that met all the requirements and ticked all the boxes and stuff like that, but they hadn't done any refresher training for about 21 months. Unfortunately, they had a individual within the club that took a heart attack in the bar one evening. Now, although the staff were competently trained and compliantly trained, because nothing had been done for 21 months, the staff didn't feel in a position to do the appropriate life-saving. Thankfully, this turns out a good story because there was a doctor in the room, and off the back of it, the doctor was able to do the appropriate side of things. So whether it be something as big as life-saving training through to checks, balances, the research shows that the best sort of training time frame there at the minute from a concentration is about 11 minutes. We're all sitting now, we're swiping more than ever, we're YouTubing, we're doing those things. So the concentration span, probably like yourself and me, Harvey, when we're learning at school, of the 1 hour, 2 hour, 3 hour courses. But again, whatever works for the club, we can accommodate any or all of the above.
Excellent. I like your comment about bite-sized learning. I think that's where a lot of the population and culture has gone, is bite-sized. It's the YouTube, podcasts or whatever with 15, 20-minute lessons on how to bake a cake, or how to change a tire and things like that. Those are just all small pieces that have become very effective, and yours is more complex, but you break that down into smaller components. I think it's better accepted that way. On your website, you mentioned that clubs may be subjected to safety audits and inspections from outside parties. Certainly that's true here with things like OSHA. I expect, but I don't know for sure, that insurance agents will do inspections as well, maybe on an annual basis as insurance policies are up for renewal. So how does what you're doing, how does your software help provide a facility with better information, better capabilities of proving their compliance to a safety inspector or an auditor?
If we take the insurance industry, we talk about two things. They talk about the sort of proactive and the reactive side of things. And culturally-wise, up until probably about 3 or 4 years ago, that the majority of organizations certainly are working, particularly from the state side of things, in that reactive and more so from a claims defensibility side of things. But what we've seen, and as I always say, this is what we do 365 days a year. We speak to clubs, we speak to stakeholders, insurance companies, law firms, usually about when things go wrong. And as I always say, so nobody has any sleepless nights tonight. Whenever it goes really wrong, that is the rare exception. But unfortunately, we speak to clubs that they've had deaths in the clubs, they've had, amputated limbs, through to OSHA coming in and finding things wrong, and all the PR and the fines and the commercial. So I don't want anybody sort of leaving here now thinking, okay, this is something that is definitely going to happen to me tomorrow, but it's not. But the thing that we see is that we call it the ostrich effect. The counter of that is people going, well, I'm not going to do anything better tomorrow morning because nothing has happened in the past. As I used that example of the club earlier on, they've had years and years and years of no significant incident, until unfortunately one little thing went very, very wrong, and now they have a very serious incident. They have OSHA and they have all the associated challenges with that. And I think the advice that I would always sort of say to clubs is, hopefully you've never had anything go wrong, but if you could take the time tomorrow morning and you could plan out and say, what is the worst things that could happen in the club? And if they did go wrong, where are we at? Whether it be, God forbid, a fatality, and we see this, unfortunately, whether it be, buildings burning down, or whether it just be the fact that a regulator such as your insurance auditor or your OSHA or even your city council officer comes in tomorrow morning and nothing has went wrong, and they're asking for proof that you've got best practice in place. That's the question. How do you take reactive into a more proactive approach?
Well, Gareth, this is, I'm going to give you a couple minutes now to kind of summarize and throw your elevator pitch at our viewers, because I'm amazed. And again, I've had no background at all running a club and trying to understand all of the safety and compliance concerns. I have a much better understanding now, and I want to personally thank Allison George for what she produced, because that gave me some more background into what you would be doing for somebody like Allison George, who's very concerned, obviously, with safety and compliance. But hey, Allison, this is taking what you've done to a whole new level, and it's putting it in a place that is going to be much easier to manage and administrate for both you and your employees and managers down the road. So Gareth, give us your elevator pitch. And I know it's getting close to pub time in Northern Ireland, right? So we don't want to keep you too much longer.
It's close to my 7-year-old daughter's basketball class. So I don't take her to the pub until at least 8 o'clock. So that's the rule for 7-year-olds. They have to be an hour later than their age. So we take her to basketball and then straight on to the pub afterwards. But I think, Harvey, the luxury that I have is, I don't come from a sales background. I don't even come from many aspects. But as an operator, I would say to any of the listeners is that if you're in the position today and tomorrow that you're 100% assured that you're meeting all your obligations around compliance, operations, safety, and training, you don't need to speak to us in any way, shape, or form. But if you're even 95% or less than that you've got gaps, we do very simple things. We give that oversight to save time, save money, and ultimately mitigate risk. And because we've won those awards for innovation, it's very, very difficult, even if you go onto our website tomorrow morning, to understand what we do until you actually see it. This is why we've won all these awards for innovation. And it was simply because the fact that the frustration of being unable to buy that platform we were looking with all of the years and decades of experience we have. So we are operators working in the same operational challenges every single day. We're sitting with some of the best clubs and organizations in the world. I think at the minute we have 6 of the world's top 20 clubs using the platform. And whether you are somebody who's just starting that journey through to one of the biggest multi-course operators in the country or anywhere in between, we'd be very, very sure we could help. So just give us a call anytime. We'll be delighted to help.
Great. That's great. That's perfect and much appreciated. Everybody, I think I mentioned at the top that it was obbi.com. That's because I'm old and I think everything is still .com. It's actually obbi.club, C-L-U-B. Gareth, are we going to see you in January?
I will be over in January at the PGA show. Again, we're working with Alan Shots. Will be at CMA conference. So yeah, we're over there plenty of times. Very good.
We'll see you. We'll see you then. Take care until then. Happy holidays, and with the new year coming up. And we'll see once this gets posted what kind of response you get. I think it's going to be substantial. So thank you for everything.
Thank you very much.